I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello, welcome to the most authentic voice in true crime. Good to see you guys here. Apologies for the slight delay. It's been a busy day. I had a YouTube one-on-one. Also, just needed to get some dinner. So anyway, sorry about that. Greetings from a very warm South Africa. It's really a hot day. Really cooking where I'm sitting. In terms of the Jennifer Doulos trial, it looks like the prosecution are going to arrest this week. I do wonder, are they going to call Kent Mawhinney? Are they going to sort of end with a bang or with a whimper? Have they made a plea deal with Kent Mawhinney? But I do think Kent Mawhinney is probably going to be one of the final or semi-final witnesses. The testimony today has been quite interesting. I'm not sure if I'm going to play all of it to you, but for example, Timmy, I really don't want you sitting on me when it's so hot. But I suppose you can. Come, boy. Come on. Come. Timmy says hi, everyone. So something that I thought was quite a strong argument from the prosecution was that basically took us through Michelle Troconis explaining to them why she left out certain items from her own alibi scripts, right? And I think one's got to ask the question, were the alibi scripts honest? Were the alibi scripts a honest attempt to try and remember what was going on? In other words, you know, was it written in a way as just a reminder, right? And then you might say, yes, it was. And then you could also say, well, there are certain things that are not included there, and is that just a failure of memory? And that's where I think the alibi script then changes and becomes, is it so that you can remember what you did do, or is it that there can be consensus between you and your co-conspirator on what you supposedly did when you were actually doing something else? Something else that came up today was that their washing machine broke on the 31st. Now, that is quite close to the murder. It's around about a week later. So you can imagine quite a lot of washing was being done on the one hand, or possibly strange objects were placed into the washing, perhaps shoes, perhaps other things. But it is quite interesting that from her own admission, the washing machine actually broke within a week of this crime. What else came up? So in terms of the alibi scripts, do you think that she mentions talking to Andreas from Greece or in the alibi script? So we know for a fact that she did. I think the call lasted about 17 seconds. And she does, in her alibi script, I think she talks about something going on at 8:12 and then something else going on at 8:30. I think that call came in at 8:26. Do you think she mentions it? I agree with Esme. It is quite a difficult trial. It certainly is a very subtle case. And for people who are used to smoking guns and red flags, this one, it's not without red flags. It's certainly just got a lot of subtlety to it. And it just takes one or two jurors to say it's not enough. There's a red flag, but it's not big enough as far as I'm concerned. What do you guys say? If you were on the jury, what do you think you would think? Yeah, good point. So anyway, we're going to listen to some of the trial. I'm going to try and also bring up where the prosecution kind of interrupt and make a comment, and so that's where we're going to start. Margaret Zabinski says the evidence is strong. Kate says too much smoke. But bear in mind, if Michelle Troconis beats the rap, then likely so will Kent Mawhinney. And vice versa. If Michelle Troconis is convicted, then you can imagine, all things being equal, Kent Mawhinney is likely to get a similar result, isn't he? Okay, so let's go to 335 here. Chelsea, Stephanie, Kate, Valerie, Mel, MK Villaverde, Earth, good to see all of you guys.
You're gonna go to accessory, murder, I didn't even know those words, hindering, tampering, and 30 stops at night. I mean, you guys also exaggerate. When I got the first,
Everybody
and I
makes
was
mistakes.
in a prison, and I spent 2 nights in a prison. I mean, of course I was.
You were in King?
I don't know where.
Yeah, that's not prison.
Well, for me,
Miami is prison. Miami is prison. Like that, we try to make it as comfortable as we could for you.
I know, but I'm telling you that
You're in
also remember, and that each time, and when you guys sat down, that for instance, I said thunderstorm, you were the first one saying, I checked the forecast.
I did.
Now, when you look at that little bit of dynamic between herself and these officers, I mean, just let me ask you, does Michelle strike you as a shrinking violet? Does she strike you as a kind of a wallflower? She's in a police cubicle with 3 men, but 2 of them are quite big, burly officers. Does she seem intimidated? Does she seem afraid? Does she seem nervous? And I'm going to play the last couple of seconds again, but she's asked later on, why did you, in your first session with us, in your second session with us, why did you leave out that, and that, and that? I think it's things like the coffee, anyway, just a couple of things. And then she says, well, I was shocked and I guess afraid. Does she seem shocked and afraid now? And how can you be shocked and afraid the second time when quite a few days have gone by? I mean, what is she shocked and afraid about? If Jennifer's gone missing, what is she shocked and afraid about? You know, just look at her body language here and ask yourself, does she seem like a kind of a shrinking violet?
I mean, you guys also exaggerate. When I got the first,
Everybody
and I
makes
was
mistakes.
in a prison, and I spent 2 nights in a prison. I mean, of Of course I was,
You were in Canaan.
I don't know where.
Yeah, that's not prison.
Well, for me, it is.
Miami's in prison. Miami. You respect that, we tried to make it as comfortable as we could for you.
I know, but I'm telling you, but
You're in
also, remember, and that each time, and when you guys sat down, that for instance, I said thunderstorm.
Look at her body language, and you've almost got to imagine her, that this is how she's talking to Fotis, that she's saying, we need to do this. And, I've had enough of this person. And we've already seen how she refers to Jennifer as a bitch and as someone who should be buried next to a dog. And I mean, yes, she's kind of on her best behavior. She's in the police station. What was she like, raw and unfiltered and triggered and angry and upset and 2 years of torture and a nightmare and, oh no, it's another weekend and I've got to find somewhere else to stay. How do you think she responds to that? What do you think she does with those feelings of anger? Does she communicate it, and does that in turn not only make Fotis feel also angry, but make Fotis feel perhaps justified in putting whatever trigger is in his mind? There's someone at his side that feels just as wronged and angry and resentful as perhaps he does. Or am I wrong? Does she seem very sweet? Does she seem very passive?
You were the first one saying, I checked the forecast.
And I did, and it said it didn't happen, but now I understand that maybe that wasn't correct. Because guess what, when I'm wrong, I'm gonna admit that I was wrong.
But you didn't admit that moment. You
I
made
didn't
me
know
doubt.
that. That's,
And you made me doubt
I
myself.
think my children don't have a mother right now. I think they
No,
feel.
but of course, I'm not
I
saying.
think they're upset, Michelle.
No, I understand, but what I'm saying, that day, you guys attacked me, everything I
No,
was saying.
we provided information that we had at the time.
Okay.
We have a lot more information now.
But everything I said, you were questioning it, and I was doubting of myself.
But that's just the process. So when we first met, we did this. And the rest we did our
Yes.
and this and now we did all of this. So, if that upsets you, this is gonna
When
really
I
make you
said
happy.
upset, it's not that it upset me in a bad way, it
It's
upset
not-
me that makes me
Not
nervous.
personal. No, not at all.
Okay.
All right, we're trying to get to the truth, Michelle. We don't care what the truth is necessarily. We want to know if you're telling 100% the truth and this is your file. One, I think that hasn't happened to you.
No.
But you need to
Another
make
thing that we
me
haven't
know
talked
you
about
believe
is Kent. Like, I found out Kent,
I
and
was
it's
going to
true.
listen to Ken, but before you get into Ken, I want to ask you about your trip to Boston.
Which one?
You went to Boston just prior to this happening, around the 18th, 19th time, right?
Yes.
What was that trip about? When was it planned? Why did you go?
My friend Paula, she's Colombian, her boyfriend, his son was graduating from Babson. And she had invited me to go, like from Thursday. I said, I can't, I have Nicole, she's in school. I was gonna go with Nicole.
Earlier.
Sorry, I actually missed the part that I wanted to highlight. I think it's around about here.
About the key, about the car wash.
So those are the things that he's asking her. He's saying, why didn't you mention the car wash? Why didn't you mention the key? Why didn't you mention the coffee stain? To us, it's not in the alibi, right? Of course, it's not, some of that stuff's not that on that date, but why didn't you mention that? And then she says she was shocked and afraid.
Coffee.
You guys didn't ask.
We asked you.
Just pausing it at 3:34:21. Detective Clabby just asked why the defendant did not tell you guys about the keys or the car wash. I think there was one other thing.
Coffee.
The coffee. And her response was, you guys didn't ask. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, in the June 6, 2019 interview, the defendant
So that's also quite a bold statement. Why didn't you tell us about these really inculpatory things? the coffee stain on the paper towel that Fotis gave to you that was more than likely a blood stain, the washing of the car when there was blood on the seat, and that was the car used. It wasn't like they went and cleaned some other car like the white Jeep, or they went and cleaned the Porsche Cayenne, or they went and cleaned the vehicle that was specifically used and that had Jennifer's evidence on it, in it. And then also she takes the keys so that Pavel Gumini at that point couldn't take them himself because they weren't finished with the vehicle. And we know they weren't finished with it because they ended up washing it completely several days later. But if you think about those things, are those things incidental omissions? It's not one thing. It's a paper towel, probably with Jennifer Doulas's blood stain on it, that Michelle's kind of acknowledging was handed to her. And you also have this moment where Pavel Gumini arrives on the scene unexpectedly, and there's a kind of a look of shock on Fotis and Michelle's faces that all three of them seem to acknowledge that they were caught by surprise. Well, that clearly doesn't look like it was an innocent surprise. And again, all of these things individually, you can say, nah, maybe it's not really that big an issue, but you add them all together. And I think it starts to approach, if you say guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, isn't it approaching that reasonable doubt standard? It's very much at that level, isn't it? There's so many other things as well. You can add the broken washing machine as well to the list. But the question is, why does she omit these things and say, I didn't tell you because you didn't ask me? Isn't that guilty knowledge? She's leaving things out, and those things are inculpatory. Those things have inculpatory implications. And so it does come down to, is she showing guilty knowledge? If there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to lie about. And yet she is being caught out in several lies. And so if she conspired after the fact, think about this. If she conspired after the fact, alibi, getting the alibis consistent, going with him to dispose of evidence, going with him to wash a vehicle, if she's going with him after the fact, wasn't there an awareness of what was happening before the fact? Wasn't she part of the plan? Because what's also interesting is, if Fotis wants to commit this crime, he also needs Nicole to be absent. And so Nicole just happens to be absent then. Was that by accident or by design? Did Michelle tell him that or not?
Carefully said to you that she would walk the world with you. Is that correct?
She did say that, yes.
But now she's indicating she didn't provide
Yeah.
information because she wasn't asked.
That is correct, yes.
Pick it back up.
I have you loading up.
No.
Yes, you.
No, the car wash was Wednesday.
We put in great detail, yes, several
I
times.
was in shock, John. I was,
Shock.
well, I mean,
So there she says, the reason I was dishonest or not forthcoming is I was in shock. But this is the part that's the problem. What about, like she gave them all sorts of details about strawberries and omelets and all these things, but then the things that were important, somehow her shock kept her from revealing. So she wasn't too shocked to reveal lots of unimportant details. She was just too shocked to reveal the important details. And I think Amanda Knox gave a similar reason, that why didn't you tell us this at this point? I think it was a similar kind of story. Another question that comes up is Michelle going to testify? I must say, I really don't think so. I really don't think so, but she certainly seems to be holding her own, or, she seems to be, I'm not saying she is, she seems to be holding her own in this interrogation cubicle.
This is not an easy thing to be sitting here with you. I mean,
That's why we're giving you several chances.
No,
This is
I'm
your third
quiet.
chance.
No, but I'm trying my best. If I remember something that I haven't said, I will tell you. I think I pretty much said everything that I know for detail, being stupid or not stupid.
No one's called you stupid.
No, not me stupid. The things I've said, that you said that I said things that are not
Well,
important.
if everything you're telling us is 100% the truth, and you did yourself no justice in the beginning of this, you put yourself in a bad situation.
I know, but you guys also have to understand that when I was arrested, they said you're gonna go to accessory, murder, I didn't even know those words, hindering, tampering, and 30 stops at night. I mean, you guys also exaggerate. When I got the first,
Everybody
and I
makes
was
mistakes.
in a prison, and I spent 2 nights in a prison. I mean, of course, I was.
You were in Eugene.
I don't know where.
Yeah, that's not prison.
Well,
Niantic's
for
prison.
me, it is.
Niantic's prison. You respect that, we tried to make it as comfortable as we could for you.
I know, but I'm telling you, but
During that
also.
Do you later, Stephanie?
Remember, and that each time, and when you guys sat down, that for instance, I said thunderstorm, you were the first one saying, I checked the
And
forecast.
I did, and it said it didn't happen, but now I understand that maybe it wasn't correct. Because guess what, when I'm wrong, I'll let it admit that I was wrong.
But you didn't admit that moment. You
I
made me
didn't know
doubt.
exactly. That's,
And you made me doubt
I
myself.
think like children don't know right now. I think they
No,
feel.
but of course, I'm not
You
saying.
think they're upset, Michelle?
No, I understand, but what I'm saying, that day, you guys attacked me, everything I
No,
was saying.
we provided information that we had at the time.
Okay.
We have a lot more information now.
But everything I said, you were questioning it, and I was doubting of myself.
But that's just the process. So when we first met, we did this. I wrote it there,
Yes,
and Dennis and Ally and all of us. So,
So that's also kind of a Amanda Knox argument, where she's saying, you guys kept asking me questions and made me doubt myself. Almost like, I told you something. I don't know if she's trying to say I told you the truth, but I told you something. Then you were so critical or so aggressive that I ended up doubting what I guess I knew to be true. And so I told you something else because of you, right? In other words, it's kind of passing the buck. It's not, were you honest or dishonest? No, I told you something, but you kept doing something. So I started doubting myself. And it kind of makes it seem okay that his story changed.
if that upsets you, this is gonna
When
take
I
making
said
that.
upset, it's not that it upset me in a bad way. It
It's
upset
not.
me that gets me
Not a
nervous.
person. No, all right. We're trying to get to the truth, Michelle. We don't care what the truth is necessarily. We want to know if you're telling 100% the truth.
So I think what is not Amanda Knox like in this situation is, here Michelle has got an attorney present. He doesn't seem to say very much. at some point, very close to this point, he does lean forward and say, can you just tell them everything you know about XYZ? There are some other similarities. She's not American. English isn't her first language. I think what's a little bit different is she's been in America for about 2 years, whereas Amanda Knox had been in Italy for a couple of weeks. And you could argue that language could be an issue and that law enforcement should have provided her kind of with an interpreter or something like that. Whether or not she really needed one, from a legal perspective, she probably should have been provided with one. On the other hand, she had a boyfriend who was Italian, who could barely speak English. So, what does that tell you? Okay, let's continue.
Necessary file. One, I think that hasn't happened to you.
No.
But you need to
Another
make
thing that we
me
haven't
know
talked
you
about
believe
is
that.
Kent. Like, I found out Kent,
I
and
was
it's
love to
true.
listen to Ken, but before you get into Ken, I want to ask you about your trip to Boston.
Which one?
You went to Boston just prior to this happening, around the 18th, 19th time, right?
Yes.
What was that trip about? When was it planned? Why did you go?
My friend Paula, she's Colombian, her boyfriend, his son was graduating from Boston.
So just a little news report from News Nation. No thanks. The defense are expected to begin making their case on Wednesday. So tomorrow should be the last day for the prosecution. I wonder who they're going to call. Schoenhorn says that he expects to continue calling witnesses until February 26th. So that's what I kind of anticipated. The defense case is only really going to be 2 days. So Wednesday, hang on, tomorrow's Wednesday. So this is basically the end of the prosecution's case. So I'm just trying to see 20. Let's have a look. So the 21st. So it'll basically be 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 days. That's really not a lot, right? 4 days for the defense case compared to 24 days for the prosecution's case. And so again, who will they likely call as witnesses? Possibly her mother, possibly wonder if they would call her daughter as a defense witness. I guess we'll find out. Okay.
Awesome. And she had invited me to go like from Thursday. I said I can't, I have Nicole, she's in school. I was gonna go with Nicole, but then Nicole had a birthday party that was a sleepover. So I dropped Nicole with Otis in Lauren's house that Saturday, and we drove to Boston.
So just another thing, it's not as though Michelle is accused of conspiracy to commit murder and then that's it. There are also kind of lesser charges, such as tampering with physical evidence. That seems to be quite that seems to be quite a hard thing to get away from. Another thing that she never mentioned was the fire in the house. The fact that a fire was clearly seen burning, and she never mentions in her alibi script that. So she's charged with second-degree hindering prosecution, tampering with physical evidence, and then conspiracy to commit murder. And so the question is she going to be found guilty of one, two, or all three of these charges? The fact that she's accused of second-degree hindering of a prosecution, and if you think about the idea of that, the sly omission of things, even when you ask questions by the police, is this the kind of person that probably would conspire to do something to act along with someone else in terms of something that would be to her benefit? She gets to live in this big mansion. She gets to enjoy, she gets to stay at home when the kids come visit because the person that was spoiling all the fun has conveniently disappeared. I mean, you've also got to think about that. Does this woman have a motive? In a situation where someone is living in the house of his ex-wife, right? And the mistress is living in that house as well. If that ex-wife dies, then who benefits from that? How does Michelle benefit from that? Does she benefit directly? What's the answer?
We went to the hotel, we got changed, we went to eat, we met with my friend at a place called Empire. We sat at the bar, we had drinks, we ate, and then her boyfriend, Guillaume, which is a friend of mine, Guillermo, called and said, okay, we meet at the nightclub. And we ended up in a nightclub called Icon. And we were there dancing in our...
We don't need to go through all the detail, I'm just curious, so it was pre-planned, it wasn't a sudden thing?
It was pre-planned, but for...
Flores came to visit you?
No, he came with me.
He came with you the whole time?
Yes.
But did he left, you didn't come back with him, right? Didn't he leave before you?
No,
No, you came back at the same time?
no, you're talking maybe of the previous.
So somewhere else here, she also says that, I think they ask her, didn't you ever speak to Fotis and ask him what was going on? Didn't you ever have any questions for Fotis? And then I think she says she understood that Jennifer had done this before and that Jennifer had gone to Aspen and changed her name. You know, she had argued with her parents and kind of run away. And I guess accepted that. And at one point, that was literally part of the metamorphing defense of Fotis Doulos.
I was also involved
Okay.
with Nicole.
He came home on a Sunday, right? And you and Nicole stayed up there? So I'm trying to understand.
No, wait. That Saturday, we drove Fotis and I together, and we came back Sunday morning.
Okay.
That 19 of May.
So you were home then?
I wasn't at home, and then I picked up Nicole in her at Lauren's house.
Okay. And you drove back from Boston with Fotis on that Sunday?
Yes.
Okay. What do you want to say about Kent?
Okay. Well, I just read about in the news that Kent also, it's like crazy with the wife, that the wife says that Kent and Fotis were planning on killing them.
Well, I'm asking you about the Sunday, because on their drive home from Boston, who does Fotis call?
Well, no, I read it also in the
Who
news.
does he call?
He was in that apparently they went to Oyster Bar with another friend. I read it all in the news. Okay.
It's actually true.
Okay.
So what did you know?
No, the only thing I knew about Kent, that he was going through a crazy divorce, a conflict divorce. Again, that woman was crazy, because that's what apparently police would say about everybody, that the women are crazy.
I have to say, the big missing puzzle piece in all this is Kent Mawhinney. We know very little about him. We know very little about his role. We know that he apparently was there that morning. He was with Michelle Troconis that morning, certainly according to her. What was his role in all of this? That's certainly kind of a puzzle piece that's missing, a big one as well. I don't know how much he's going to reveal. I mean, is he going to be called? I mean, I don't know whether he's possibly testifying now.
Well, I'm telling you.
Did not say that she.
When I was in Colorado, apparently Kent stayed over
The
with
existing.
Otis a few nights.
And when was that?
In February, March.
Okay.
I don't know. Also, another friend, Christos, that was also that got into a fight with the son of my wife, stayed like for a month in Fort Jefferson while I was in Colorado. But again, Kent, I never like.
Again, if you look at her body language, it's quite aggressive. You know, she's not just expressing herself; it's quite cutting, and it's quite intense. Just look at how she flaps her hands around here.
With Otis a few nights.
And when was that?
In February, March.
Okay.
I don't know. Also, another friend, Christos, that was also that got into a fight with the son of my wife, stayed like for a month in Fort Jefferson while I was in Colorado. But again, Kent.
And I mean, if you think about it, when you have conversations with people, when last did you do that? You know, take your hand right over your head, you know, do that and kind of do that. It's just she's a very intense person. And so is Fotis.
I never like Kent. Kent is a person that I think he gave like bad advice for Fotis. He was the one saying don't pay that mortgage because it will put more pressure on the mom, and for what Fotis told me. This never came out of Kent's mouth. And they were meeting a lot. They were seeing a lot in that time. I thought it was because of the divorce, not the divorce, the mom of Jennifer making the lawsuit against Ford. And supposedly that's why Kent was the lawyer of Fotis for that. The only thing I knew.
And you just get the sense that she's totally in the middle of this. She's mentioning Jennifer launching a lawsuit against the Fall Group. She works for the Fall Group. Her boss is Fotis. Her lover is Fotis. She lives in the same house. Her daughter lives in the same house. So Jennifer doing that makes her not only her own enemy, but the enemy of her job and also the enemy of the people that are closest to her. Even if she didn't live in the house, but her daughter did, it would also have an implication for Nicole. Nicole could lose her home. Nicole could might not be able to go to school. Nicole, do you know what I'm saying? She stands to lose in so many areas, which also means she stands to gain in all of those areas as well if Jennifer just disappears.
That they had a very terrible divorce, that the woman was crazy saying that Kent raped her, and I'm like, that was my comment all the time towards Kent.
Okay. So most of what you know is what you saw in the news?
So you heard what she said there. I think I understood. She said these people are crazy, meaning Kent and his wife were kind of crazy people.
What I saw in the news and the little that Poti said, that it's like that the wife and Kent, they were having a conflict, divorce, that they were trying to see each other, but they couldn't because they had something over the court, a restraining order. I mean, everything was like weird, like very weird. For me, it was, yeah, very awkward.
Michelle, was there a time that you took your computer to an IT guy to have him download it?
Yes, that first.
When, can you tell me about that?
Yeah, Dean, it's called, a guy, Dean. He's a nice guy, he's for this IT guy, he does all the work for group and computers. Fotis told me, call him, because I wanna ask him, how do I change from the number, from his old number to the new iPhone with the new number? Okay, he was supposed to meet with him. I texted or I called him and said, yeah, we'll meet tomorrow at 9:10 on Friday.
Zeisler?
What is that?
Is that his name? Zeisler?
Dean.
Dean.
Dean is
Okay. Yeah.
DEAN.
Dean. Okay, so when you.
So he comes, Forty said, at some point, I'm going to see Kent. So he left.
Yeah.
And he left me with the washer machine and the IT guy.
Okay.
And Dean, I said, Dean, Fortis wanted to meet you, but he had to leave. And he wants to change the old number to the, and he said, no, you have to go to an Apple store and do it. So he couldn't do it. That's what Dean said.
Well, did Dean help you
And
with
then,
images or photographs or anything on your computer or your phone?
no, then, like 2 months before, Fortis and Dean, they gave me an external drive that I had with my stuff from my computer, and I brought it down, and
This was
I
2 months before what? 2 months before Jennifer's history?
Yes. Like, Fortis always had this thing that they were gonna depose and attack, and they were gonna take all the computers from the divorce, so we had to have backups. I'm like, okay, I don't mind having backups. I don't have anything to hide in my computer. So that day, I picked up my hard drive from the upstairs. I gave it to Dean. He connected and he said, oh, we do an update. Okay, and he did an update. Then I did ask him, have you seen the news? Everything that is coming out of the disappearance of Jennifer and the husband and their name, my name was out there. And I said, how can I erase that? He said, no, that's a Google thing. And that was it. And then Fotis never came and he left.
So he didn't take photos off your phone or your laptop?
No, nothing. And first, I don't think he did my phone, he did it, he went from the computer to the
drive.
hard drive.
Yeah, the reason that we're interested in the keys and the keys being in the lock and then Michelle leaving and then photo scan. About realizing the keys have been taken by Michelle, is that it looks, the possibility is that Fotis wanted to keep that Tacoma longer so he could do a more thorough cleaning of it. And the fact that you removed it.
So, Esme, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by culture's playing a role in the way she's handling this interview? What do you mean? She also says by speaking in this rapid way, she's trying to prove her innocence.
Keys from the Tacoma door could be construed as you being part of the plan to keep the Tacoma longer. So do you understand that's why we're asking some of these questions?
So I don't know if you caught that, is saying the fact that you end up with the Toyota Tacoma's keys is quite interesting, because you end up keeping the Toyota Tacoma longer than you otherwise would have. And if you think about that, that certainly is quite a position to be in. Fotis doesn't have the keys to the Tacoma, she does. The Toyota Tacoma is an important vehicle in this crime, and she ends up with the keys to it. When last did you have the keys to someone else's vehicle? Not a rental, somebody else's vehicle. When last did you have in your hand the keys to someone else's vehicle? And when last did you have the keys to a vehicle where someone was dead in that vehicle? You know, so if you're trying to make the case that this is all one big mistake, or that maybe she knew this or maybe she knew that, if you end up with the keys of someone else's vehicle in your hand, how does that happen? Aren't you going to ask a couple of questions about it? Aren't you going to be like aware of why you need the keys, why you want the keys, what you're going to do with the keys? And especially if the person who wants the keys says he wants the keys and you don't let them have the keys. You don't just say, yeah, the keys. You are actually, in a way, interfering with the person whose car it is getting their car.
So did Fotis tell you to take the keys? Or did you just take them on your own?
No, what I remember is him saying, calling me and saying, you took Fabio's keys,
Right.
and I said, did
But
I?
that's after you took the keys.
Yes.
My question is, why didn't you take the keys when you took them?
If I took it and I was the last one, probably because the door was open, I closed it and I took it. But my understanding is that they went back, they picked up the car, and Valen took it with the motorcycle.
Okay, so
Which I don't know.
there isn't any question, right, that you took the keys?
No, there's
Okay,
no,
so
I'm certain.
So just a little observation here. What's just happened is the one officer's left the room and possibly went for a bathroom break. Possibly he went to get a drink of water. But make no mistake, I mean, he was gone for quite a while. We could check exactly how long he was gone for. So he seems to leave at about this point here. So it's 3:47. Is gone for around about 5 minutes, right? I don't think he spent that whole 5 minutes in the men's restroom. That could have taken 1 minute or 2 minutes. Probably he got, probably he spoke to someone who's watching this whole thing and was given some information. Ask her about this, go review this part again. And that's one of the sly little areas where law enforcement have the edge over someone in the situation. She may think she's got to outsmart or outthink or outlie or outwit the two officers in the room. But there are actually far more minds that are at work than just these two. They're the ones behind the scenes, and then the others that are gathering information and files and all that kind of thing.
But you don't leave a car open in the middle of nowhere in the house.
What does Terry say?
It's in a driveway to a residence, but there's other people. In a residence that you can't even see from the street.
I closed the cars when I.
Oh, I have no problem closing the cars. It's not, you're not in the middle of nowhere. I mean, metal photos are still there, and there are two people, and there are two other vehicles there, in addition to your vehicle, right? The Raptor's there, the Suburban's there, the phone is there, you're there, and the Jeep.
Yes, all the cars were there.
So now I'm just trying to get through to you why we're so interested in why you
There's
took
no
those
why,
keys
but
out.
the keys, I have them, and I gave them, I'm pretty sure I gave them to Fotis when he arrived to the house.
So you said that at one point you might have taken photos
Good point.
back from 80 Mountain Spring to Jefferson Crossing because it needed to be recharged.
Yes.
Did at any time you take the phone back to 80 Mountain Spring to give it back to Fotis? Do
I
you?
don't know if I brought it or
Let me-
Fotis went to the house and.
All right, there's no sense in going over this until we actually answer this first question. Do you remember, Michelle, taking Fotis's phone from 80 Mountain Spring and bringing it back to Jefferson, or you just said you
No,
lied?
I don't remember, I took the phone because it was out
Don't.
of battery. No,
Are you saying you don't remember?
no, I do.
All right, well, it's just not coming out.
I do, I do.
You do remember taking Fotis's phone back to North Jefferson?
Yes,
Okay,
now
so that would be at a time that both of your phones go back to Jefferson, even though Fotis remains at 80 Mountain.
yes,
Okay, so do you then bring it back to 80 Mountain Spring?
you know, I think he comes to the house and grabs it,
That
I
doesn't
think.
fit. That just doesn't fit.
or maybe I did, so then yes, I brought
Okay,
it back.
so if you did,
Okay, I brought it back,
okay, so if you did you leave your phone behind at that time?
no, I
Okay, that
don't.
doesn't fit either. All right, I'm just trying to clarify as best I can, how much does and does not fit.
So I'm not quite sure where it is in this interview. It might be a little bit back, but Kimball basically says to her, if this goes to a jury and there are 12 people that are going to listen to your story, do you think they're going to think it's reasonable? And that's exactly where we are right now. What are the jury thinking about this? And I think what counts against the prosecution is, as much evidence has been led, it is quite a grueling trial. There are so many details. And I think a lot is going to depend on the closing statements of the prosecution to distill the whole narrative into a cogent, salient, short, concise story.
The things that we have, that's it.
Can you tell me what doesn't fit?
So a lot, that story you just told me doesn't match up with the movements of the phones.
I always had my phone with me,
Okay.
I never took.
I'm just telling you that it doesn't fit. Yeah, that's all.
And I think that's another reason that this case is not a walk in the park and quite subtle, is we don't even have Jennifer's body. It's quite rare. It's quite rare in true crime that, and I mean, look how far we are into this case. It's around about 5 years. After 5 years, despite all that surveillance, despite all the evidence, despite all these interviews, we don't know where Jennifer's body is. And because we don't know where a body is, there's, the body provides so many additional clues. To some extent, time of death, to some extent, the murder weapon, to some extent, evidence of the perpetrator. But the body basically provides sometimes 20%, 30%, 60% of the story. In the John Benet Ramsey case, that's certainly the case, that John Benet's body actually tells us most of the true story of what actually happened to her. And in this case, that's another very big fragment that's missing.
We're hoping that you would come here and give us a lot more information on.
But what information do you guys want, please?
Here's a question. Friday the 24th was a beautiful day. The weather was nice, do you remember? It was very nice.
Yes.
You and Fotis go to Hartford to throw out garbage and go to Starbucks. Why is there a fire in your gym?
So remember I said, he's stepped out the room and he's probably consulted with someone. And after Kimball sort of finishes talking, this is Kimball on the left, isn't it? Or have I missed something? Anyway, he then brings up the fire, and I'm sure that is something that has been conveyed to him by somebody else. That's the intel that he's possibly been given.
What time was it?
Around 1 year in Hartford, not home. But there's smoke billowing out of your gym.
I don't think there was like smoke out of the chimney.
Yeah, there was, I saw it. Yeah, there was video from your neighbor's house, it was evidence you fired tons of smoke billowing out of. So
Oopsie. Now, can you see she's confronted with this evidence? She hasn't been forthcoming about that either. And look how she goes from this to guarded. Look at her body language. She's guarded. And I think that the fire burning is quite significant. And I also think it's something that she didn't expect, is that they can actually have evidence of smoke coming out the chimney. I mean, who would imagine that a camera would pick that up as well? And I think it's only actually blind luck that a camera did pick that up, because first of all, the wind was blowing, and secondly, the clouds were causing light and shadow to sort of alternate. And as a result of that, the camera activated. And as a result of that, it activated when the fire was on. It was, like I say, kind of blind luck that it was actually recorded. But the fact is, it did record it. And look at her posture there. Doesn't she look pretty unnerved? She's been pretty relaxed and even confrontational, and suddenly she's on guard.
You got her in Hartford, you have a nice fire burning with nobody home. And it's all recorded on video, so I do think, Michelle, that did happen, because I'm not gonna just make stuff
No,
up.
I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I do turn the chimney a lot.
Did you go out for the day? Let's
It
do
wasn't night. It was the date.
Well,
it was day.
It was light up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
What were you guys burning?
Wood.
It was beautiful.
And I do wood. My mom came on Friday and I did wood.
People are outside in shorts and you're having a fire in your house?
I do fire every day, doesn't matter.
Every day.
Well, not
And
every
you
day.
leave it burning when you leave the house.
No, it wasn't burning when we leave the house. I don't think it was burning. It must have.
I think so, because we have video of you in the car in Hartford.
No, I was. I'm not saying
And
that
at
it
the same
wasn't.
time, we have video of your house having tons of smoke on it. The house clearly didn't burn down. So
You notice her body language. So yeah, kind of catching her out with information they have. Again, she's still not, this is the third interview, she's still not volunteering.
There wasn't a fire, so.
No, but it wasn't.
So you guys had a fire that
Yes, I had a fire that day.
day? At what time?
It's going in the fireplace.
When I came back, probably like around 5,
Around 5? But at 5, you were at 8 Mountain Road, is this a Pavel, right?
well, 5:30. I
But
mean,
then you're going back and forth, so how was that at 5:30?
I was already at 5:30.
Just gonna pause it at 3:51:59. The defendant indicated that she had a fire at approximately 5:30 PM on May 25th. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
During the course of the interview, did the defendant ever indicate to you whether or not she had set a fire at 2:56 PM?
No,
Did she ever indicate to you whether or not she had set a fire at 3:25 PM?
no.
I wasn't.
Got wood, started a
No,
fire, got it
what
going.
we have inside the house?
So, they're basically saying the third time she changes her statements, and now she's being honest, except she's not. She's basically saying it's almost like, oh, so you know that. Okay, so I'll tell you that. I'll tell you about that. And she's only telling them about stuff that she seems to be aware of, that they know. She's not going to be volunteering anything incriminating.
Is it a gas? I mean,
No, it's with real wood. We have a,
it takes a
Good
few
to see you,
minutes to
Sue.
start a fire to really get it going good.
no,
I mean, your chimney is,
no.
you always smoke in your
No,
going.
you grab the thing that you buy, that you peel the paper, you turn it on and you put wood.
Duralog,
Yes,
that,
but
they don't keep out a ton of smoke.
not smoke, with the wood, with that thing with wood. That's what I'm saying.
Now, there's the chimney to your house, and it's crazy smoke coming out of it, and the Duralog,
No, the Duralog only, with wood. We have the wood, I have the wood inside the house.
and you left the house with the wood burning.
That's not a problem, you put the fence and it's not gonna burn the house.
Okay, I can find you a lot of statistics to say otherwise, but, so you did have a fire, is what you're saying.
Yes, and I had a fire.
And you started that fire.
Yes, and I had a fire like 2 days after, and I had fire when my mom was there, that she wanted to fire on that Friday. So, and even Pavel helped me carry logs that week.
That week or that day?
No, that week,
That week.
inside the house.
Did you know that Fotis borrowed Pavel's axe?
So that is also pretty weird, is that according to what is just said, the fire was burning, the smoke was still coming out when they left the house again. So you can't say they needed it for ambience. It seemed like a functional fire. It's not a fire for comfort or for some kind of direct effect. And then the next thing he says, which is also interesting, that Fotis borrowed Pavel's axe. And what could an axe be used for? Remember, we've spoken about poor Jennifer's shirt was cut open. Her bra was also, looks like it was cut. It wasn't just removed; it was cut off. What if the axe was used for what? And it's quite an interesting. She's saying they burnt wood. Just wondering what else they could have burnt. Anyway, so that is that's another major thing that apparently Pavel gave an axe to them as well. You've also kind of got to wonder, Pavel, at what point did you start to have a light come on, you know?
No,
No?
no,
Do you know why he would borrow Pavel's axe?
no, because I didn't, bueno, now that you're saying they need to do something, but I never saw
I'm
him
not saying that, I'm
with
just
an
asking
axe. I never saw him with an axe.
you. You never saw the axe in the garage?
Which one is an axe to start with?
It's,
Okay, so they found an axe in the garage. Sue Kendall, thanks for that, Sue. He did say something about please don't go after Jennifer. I did think about that and I did look at that. But sorry, not Jennifer, Michelle. He seems the most concerned about his kids, though. And of course, his kids had a pretty traumatic thing where they had to see their father, I guess, on a ventilator. Anyway, interesting point.
did you chat with him?
Okay, no, I
No?
didn't, no. Focus on Monday, I think, in the morning, he was doing the garden in front of the house.
Does he ever use an axe?
No, he was using a,
Have you ever known him to use an axe?
never seen,
You never seen photos shot wood? Never. Does he have a chainsaw? Photos? Did you ever see him cut trees?
No.
Never?
no,
So that would be out of his character rather than home.
no,
Being different.
I've never seen.
You've never seen
cut.
it?
The one that would cut, like the entrance to us to go on the motorcycle was Pavel, but I think it was with the one that's I don't see him with a chainsaw.
Okay.
But I don't think Papotis has a chainsaw.
Okay. Michelle, does this bike at all look familiar? This type of bike, not this bike, it's exactly,
It could be,
all right.
it looks,
Is that
I don't know
similar?
that color.
Okay. So the bike the old bike that
And it was
Lotus has
black,
had,
it was black
It's black.
seat.
that's why I'm saying not this bike. You have, where is that bike now? Do you happen to know where that bike was the last time you saw that bike?
In a mountain. But
That's
then-
the last time, is it back? Well, you're not back.
And when I went to pick up the bicycles, I don't remember seeing it.
At Jefferson?
So obviously at this point that they seem to be thinking about the disposal of a body, the processing of the body. But if you think about it, two things have disappeared, Jennifer and a bicycle. And if you had to dig a hole, let's say you wanted to bury a body and a bicycle, that would take a mighty big hole, I would imagine. Now, I don't know, one way of thinking about this is if you find the bicycle, you're going to find Jennifer. Not necessarily. I suppose you could throw a bicycle into, and they do this in the Netherlands all the time, into a river, and you'll never see it again. You know, it'll sink and that's it. But that does add an interesting dimension to this case, is that there's quite a big object that's also missing, this bicycle, what would be the best, easiest place to get rid of it, I don't think you would try and bury the bicycle. I don't think you would do that. I think it would just be easy to just throw it into a body of water. And if you're thinking of that, while you're there, why not get rid of a person as well? You just got to make sure that that they are anchored, I guess. And he's got all the construction tools to make that happen, I guess.
When I went to pick up my clothes
At Jefferson.
at Jefferson.
Okay, but that book that you pointed out, Detective Cloudy, that's normally where it would hang?
Yes,
Yeah, it's a
yes,
book.
yes.
Okay.
Has he tried to contact you?
No,
No,
he doesn't have my new number.
No. All your family?
No.
And if you have no more detail to offer us, you understand there's explaining that still needs to.
Yes, if you ask me, I'll try to answer as much as I can, but maybe you guys have something in the head that I don't have.
No, we can't tell you what to say, you know, we
No,
can't.
but maybe ask me.
You see, there she's kind of fishing. She's saying, I've told you everything I can think of. Maybe you can tell me something that I need to say, which is basically saying, let me know what you know, and then yes, now I remember, kind of thing, right? And this isn't like a geography quiz. Let's talk about Hungary, and what's the capital of Hungary, and what do you know about the geography of Hungary? Think about everything you can think about. This is a murder, and what are the most incriminating things? Those are the things I'm not going to tell you, but I'll tell you all the other things. I'll tell you about the omelette that I made. I'll tell you about a thunderstorm. I'll tell you about when I took a shower. None of the things that are really important.
I don't know what happened.
It is sneaky.
Like, for instance, going back and forth of the house, I tell you what I recall in my memory. That yes, at some point I went back, I came back, and then I went back and I stayed. I didn't go back to 80 Mountain. So.
No, neither of us were there, so we have to listen to what you're telling me, and then we have to look
You
it
can
up.
have access to my information because of my phone, so you know exactly where I
A
was.
lot of that stuff, you just saying, I'm just saying, so if I'm the notice, it's all, you're telling us.
No, because there are things that I forget, like for instance, I just found out, I just remember when we saw the evidence, because we saw the paper of the bank of Fortis, that they were going to the bank, otherwise I would not remember. If I didn't see the evidence on the tape that you guys sent of a bank, an ATM bank.
Thanks a lot, Earth. So let me ask you guys a question. Do you think having an affair can influence someone into developing a criminal mind? Let me ask the question in a different way. Do you think having an affair can sort of trigger criminal psychology? Do you think that cheating helps to initiate that sort of mechanism of criminal psychology, right? And if you think about all the cases that involve murder and deception and covering up, that are that start off or that are within the context of an affair, it's quite astonishing. The O.J. Simpson case, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this. O.J.'s girlfriend basically was about to leave him. O.J. was worried that Nicole was also going to leave him, but also there were quite a few things taking place. But Nicole was sort of interested in a football rival of O.J.'s. But certainly, even though Nicole was his ex-wife, I think he still thought of her as his in a way. But anyway, that's O.J. If you take, obviously, the Scott Peterson case, he's lying to Amber Frey, he's lying to Lacey, and then he just lies to the reporter, and he thinks, because if somebody loves you and you lie to them, they believe you. Well, that if you lie to someone who doesn't love you, they'll also believe you. It doesn't tend to work that way. Chris Watts is another good example. Another example is the Patrick Frazee case, although it's slightly different. Patrick Frazee, I think, wanted to get out of a relationship with his fiancée, and it may have had a little bit to do with inheriting, but he nevertheless relied on a mistress as well. So again, a little bit of deception in terms of with the person that he's the closest with, he's also having something's going on somewhere else. Any other examples? There, Terry Dean's put a little bit of a list together. Caitlin Armstrong, Laurie Vallow. So the bottom line is the affair teaches subterfuge, deception, lying, trickery, coming up with stories, and gives one a false sense of confidence. I've gotten away with it. I've had an affair. I've done exactly what I wanted to do, and nobody knew it. No one could figure it out, right? And so I'll just commit a murder and I'll just do the same thing. I've managed to pull the wool over everyone's eyes in this affair. I'll just do the same with the murder. Sorry, the level of interrogation with the murder is much more serious, as you can see here, as you saw in the Chris Watts case. You are being questioned not by just one person, and also the person questioning you is writing things down, and they're recording what you say, and they're going to ask you again, and it's going to go on for hours. So this, in any event, the psychology of getting away with something starts with the affair. You got away with the affair. You in terms of the affair, there are many little transgressions which are always covered over and accounted for with lies, right? But this is a systematic thing where someone goes, there's a whole team of investigators checking your story. It's a totally different ballgame. But because you thought you got away with your affair, oh, I'm actually a very clever little operator here. What if I take my game into the homicide arena? That's how skillful I am. I can get away with anything. Actually, maybe not. Actually, probably not. But that whole thing of, I think there's a little bit of contempt. When someone's having an affair, there's a little bit of contempt for the other party, the other woman, if you want to put it that way. If you're the mistress, there's a bit of contempt for her. And there's a little bit of a sense of superiority that, I can have my cake and eat it, and look how clever I am. I'm a crafty fox. Chris Watts, during the sermon on the porch, comes across as very gleeful. Meanwhile, he's totally, what's the word? Is already totally wrong-footed. That confidence that he has in himself is about to be totally exposed, as someone who's actually a terrible liar. And right, and so you can clearly see how the that whole thing where you get caught up in, let's call it a sexual roller coaster or a fairy tale, makes you think that you've got some kind of superpower over lesser mortals, until you don't, until you're caught.
Right, you already got a lot of that.
Yeah.
So did you see all the stuff in the maps? Did you get all that or not?
So thanks.
No, but I think we're missing one value.
We might be. I mean, there is, we saw Green Street, Garden Street, Center Street. We saw the garbage bags from the house.
You saw the stuff that was in it.
Yes, and nothing construction.
Michelle, this is the one you wrote, right? This was the,
Yeah, that's my favorite.
and this is the one that Phyllis wrote? These two? So, is this accurate what you wrote?
I don't understand even what it says. What does it say?
So, we're gonna work your way down. No, you put it flat out.
So Valerie says, are you suggesting the affair alone is a triggering event? I'm certainly not saying that just the affair is the triggering event, because plenty of people have affairs and they don't commit murder. What I'm saying is the affair is probably part of a triggering event. So if you take the affair, which basically says you could have all of this. All of this could be yours. You could have this really happy, you could be in this happy place if only this person wasn't there, right? That's part of the psychology. If this person simply didn't exist, then there would be nothing standing in the way of me and my happiness, right? Of course, the other side to all of this is money, right? Chris Watts was financially in trouble. If he was a wealthier dude, he probably would have gotten divorced because he could have afforded it, but he kind of couldn't afford to get divorced. Same with Scott Peterson. Scott Peterson's finances were really dire, right? And so same with Alex Murdaugh, same with, although I don't think Alex Murdaugh, I don't think he committed murder because he didn't want to get divorced. His marriage wasn't really working out, but I think there were other factors going on there, a diversion, maybe Maggie could have been a witness of sorts, but I'm just saying that the affair is an important practice run, and if you take the affair away, would a crime still have happened? And I would argue in most cases, no. At the same time, if you change the financial circumstances, so let's say Chris Watts was very wealthy, would the situation be different? I'm not sure if it would, because the problem was that Shanann was pregnant and Shanann didn't want to get divorced, and so that was also a factor. But I do think money is money, and the fact that you don't have money, you don't have the means to leave the marriage, but you very much do want to leave that situation. And so how do you cheat that whole process? Well, by the same way that you've done it all along, by cheating. Does that make sense? But if you do say, I don't think an affair is really relevant, I would say I certainly don't think that it helps not commit a crime. So if you take a lot of these cases, infidelity, teaching you to be dishonest, teaching you to cheat, teaching you to lie, teaching you to dissemble, doesn't help prevent a crime, if that makes sense.
She ain't work on drafts. Is that what it says?
And they cover the whole draft.
Okay. Who's Michi? You, right?
And Michi.
And who's Andy?
And it's the guy that
Andy
works
Loomis?
on, yes, Louis.
Okay. Was Andy Loomis there that day? That's Monday, that's Friday.
No, Andy was there.
No, it's just on Friday the
No.
24th. All
No,
right.
I didn't see him.
All right, so what is what you're saying, that this piece of paper that Fotis wrote for you, right, this is talking about you,
Yeah, because
is it not accurate?
Oh, it's not
At
accurate.
least that part of it is not accurate, right?
Yeah, that's not accurate. Brought computer to office, and she has to
Right.
choose. No, obviously he wrote everything that I told you because this is true.
Why would Michelle Troconis say that she saw doulos in their home in the morning? Right? Do you see what I'm saying? Why would you say Fotis was in their home that morning? Can you reconcile that with not being part of a conspiracy to commit murder? Michelle admitting that she lied about doulos being in their home that morning, doesn't she know why she needs to lie? Doesn't she know what the lie is covering up? Anyway.
Like I did juice when you go to school. I did take the purse, Hutch called and Michi took purse. And that, well, he didn't call me, I texted Aaron. The supermarket, it's true, I went to the supermarket, so he was writing what I was saying, he wrote it, but then, yes.
And then did you read it? Is that,
No, just looking at it.
because that is kind of close to what you told us on our first interview.
Yo, but it's like, I did go to the supermarket, I did.
Okay.
No, this is not true.
That's not true.
The shower together.
Wow. You've certainly brought a smile to my face, Maria. Maria says, thanks so much, Maria. Maria says, I appreciate all your hard work, continued analysis on all the cases you deep dive in. I'm so glad I joined as you have soothed my mind. You have given me peace with some events in my life that I could not come to terms with. Thank you truly. Well, that's really special. And it's always really good to hear that something positive comes out of this kind of examination. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Maria. Biggest super chat probably in easily a year. I'm not sure if I've ever gotten 99.99. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I just want to touch on that quickly. When I was in America, somebody told me that that she was in a storm, like a really big kind of hurricane type storm. I'm not sure if it was, may even have been a hurricane. And she was alone at home, and she was terrified and scared, like scared and needed to be comforted. And somebody said to her, why don't you read one of Nick's books? And she happened to choose a particular book that was actually a parody. And she said she ended up going from anxious and afraid and shivering to laughing. And basically that I'd helped her through this really traumatic period. And when I was listening to this, I was really dumbfounded because I thought I would never in a million years have imagined something like that happening. And I just felt very good about the fact that some of my very hard work had kind of blessed someone. And so that was really nice to hear. I don't want true crime just to be this gratuitous thing. I do want us to be healed and soothed, and our communities to be improved in some way, our thinking process to be made stronger and more effective. And if I honestly feel like if I can achieve that with one person, then I've succeeded. So it certainly is good to see, good to hear. Anyway, let's continue with this analysis.
So did he tell you took shower
Thanks,
together,
Kate.
or did you tell him?
No, he said it.
So is that him telling you what to tell the police? Or is that him trying to help you remember what happened?
Well, obviously it was for me to say it, but
Okay.
he was trying to be more accurate, but with a
But it's
lie.
not being accurate. You
With
guys
a lie,
didn't,
with
right?
a lie, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, a lie's not accurate.
Like, I know, that's what I'm saying, he was trying to feel things that I said, I don't remember, but with things that it wasn't true. And then for Petrus, that was me. And to the phone, I did do that.
Mhm.
Computer sent and to Shako, okay, I don't know what's that, sent email to.
Yeah, that's all, he has him mixed in with you.
Yes.
So I could be wrong, but I think what she's looking at is she's reviewing her own alibi, and remember what they've said a couple of times already. Are you telling us everything you know? And she then says, well, maybe you can help me remember by telling me what I haven't told you, something like that. And they say, it doesn't work that way. But in that context of, have you told us everything? I think they're showing her alibi script. And now the question is she going to reveal that phone call from Andreas, which basically established Fotis's alibi? Now, if you said to someone, I don't know whether a jury is going to believe what you're saying. And also, you didn't mention that and that and that, right? Okay, and let's try and remember. I've told you everything I can remember. Okay, let's go through your alibi script. Let's see if you can remember anything. And you still don't volunteer that's when you got that call. Isn't that a what's one level below a smoking gun, a steaming gun, a crackling gun? Well, isn't that quite significant? So Esme says, does she have an alibi? Yeah, she does have an alibi. I really don't believe that she was in New Canaan. I think it's pretty clear that she was where she had to go and drop her daughter off at school. So she does have an alibi.
Right, there's more than the beginning, because towards the end, he starts to give his own. He goes further into the evening because he talks about members of New Canaan Police Department contacting him. So he goes all the way over.
That's true. That's not true. Like, I didn't take a shower with him. I did do the juice, but obviously he was putting things that I had said. I made that for Nicole and then for me.
But there's definitely, some unsure things. All right, so to recap, you saw Kent in the office on Friday the 24th. Fotis's phone was in the office, and
so I just want to talk about what Diane says here. Diane writes, I can't wrap my head around the fact that having an affair, being involved in a murder, having enormous money issues would give me happiness. One would have to be out of your mind. Well, I think you've kind of answered the question. If you're in love, if you're in lust, you are kind of out of your mind. Anyone that's pursuing a fairy tale, and I mean, romantic fairy tales are often the most compelling. Jodi Arias was pursuing a romantic fairy tale. Chris Watts said, I haven't met a woman like this. I never thought I'd meet a woman like this in a million years. Caitlin Armstrong was, I guess, obsessively in love with her partner, right? And so in a certain way, all of them are out of their minds. They are in love, right? That's the one part of it. The other part that I think you've got to remember is this didn't all just happen like that. It's not like, boom, let's commit murder. It's one step at a time. First, you are tempted by someone that you like, but they married, and then you friendly to them, and then they're friendly to you, and then that friendliness crosses a line, and then the friendliness crosses another line, and eventually that line's crossed, and then you start crossing lines constantly, and so it starts off with that, and then you say, oh, I really wish I could be with this person. Then you are with that person. I really wish I could be with this person in their house. Then you are with this person in their house. I really wish I could be with this person. I really wish this other person wasn't there. well, and then eventually it becomes, well, I've gotten this thing that I wanted, I've gotten that thing, I got that thing. Now I must just make this happen and then I can have what I want. So, it's kind of a process of crossing lines. And eventually you faced with this line of, well, just get rid of this person. I'm well on my way to having a fairy tale, and it's either me or them, right? In the animal kingdom, and I often sometimes find animal analogies quite apt to describe some of these things, because we are, to some extent, animals. We're territorial, we're jealous, we have appetites, right? We have a sense of rivalry. We have a sense of, especially with Kate and Armstrong, there's a sense of female rivalry going on there. But you certainly, in the animal kingdom, when you have, let's say, two lions battling each other for dominance, the one that wins definitely achieves happiness. They get the female, they get the happily ever after. The loser then goes off sort of limping into the lonely felt, and he's got to try and pick up the pieces from there. So, the person who wins in a situation like this, I'm talking about not where you murder someone, but where you win the thing, does end up with a certain amount of happiness. And I think this was what it was about, trying to get back happiness. And when your world is a lot about money can buy you happiness, and you feel like someone's standing in your way. And I mean, this is a unique case where Jennifer was basically both the source of that money and the reason for the money tap being closed. There was a sense that if you got rid of her, your money problems would also sort of disappear.
You heard the phone ring, and Kent started moving towards you.
Like coming and saying, like something with the call, like grab the call or
Okay.
is that a call, something with the call.
And you picked
And
up the
I
phone.
picked up the phone. I saw Andreas, but as I tell you, sometimes police writes the name of women in man's name.
Did you suspect that might be a call from a woman?
Yes.
Okay. But Kent pushed you, like he wanted you to, let's say, encourage you. He encouraged you
He
to
didn't
answer the
approach
phone.
each other. He
No,
was,
no, no, no.
he was hard.
That's why he said, "Are you gonna get that or can you get
Yes,
that?"
yes.
And he wanted you to
Then
answer.
he was like listening to me with the phone, and there was like,
But did Kent wanted you to answer that phone?
it felt like yes, because he was like looking at me.
Okay, knowing it was not his phone. Not your
Yes.
phone.
No, mine wasn't. It was his phone.
Okay, so there's static on the phone. He says, "Oh," you say, "Oh,"
Yeah.
and then the phone like terminates or fails,
Yes.
and you put the phone.
Name of women in man's name.
Did you suspect that might be a call from a woman?
Yes.
Okay, but Kent pushed you, like he wanted you to, let's say, encourage you. He encouraged you
He
to
didn't
answer the
approach
phone.
each other. He
No,
was,
no, no, no.
he was hard.
That's why he said, "Are you gonna get that or can you get
Yes,
that?"
yes.
And he wanted you to
Then
answer.
he was like listening to me with the phone, and there was like.
So I'm sure Kent. All right, so to recap, when you saw Kent in the office on Friday the 24th, Fotis's phone was in the office, and the phone, you heard the phone ring, and Kent started moving towards you.
Like coming and saying, like something with the call, like grab,
And then the phone like terminates or fails,
Yes.
and you put the phone back down. encounter, that all was a matter of maybe 20, 30, 40 seconds short?
Yeah.
Okay. And did the phone ring again, that you know of?
No, because I left.
Okay, and you left the phone there, and when you were holding the phone, did at any time Kent ask for the phone? Did he say, give me the phone? Okay, all right, just wanted to clarify that.
Did he say to you, are you gonna get it?
Yeah, he said something, are you gonna get the call, or is that the call, like something with the call.
He said, is that the call?
No, are you gonna get the call, or is that a call, like, I don't know exactly the words, but yes, he said, like,
So basically, Kent asked if you were going to.
exactly.
It's quite interesting what the cop says there, because if Kent did say, is that the call, then that would suggest that Kent also knew that the call was deliberate, that it was a deliberate alibi call at a preordained time. And it's quite interesting. You can see she's got her hand over her mouth there. I wonder whether he did say, is that the call? Because I don't know if you remember, there were something like a dozen calls that morning, and she only answered the one at 8:26, which would have been about 20 minutes into the murder.
I want to go back to, you all said that. I want to go back to the day of the car wash, 29th, after you meet with Attorney Bowman. You go to the bank to get cash.
So because it's not my account and I didn't do it. I was sitting in the house.
Why did he pay with cash? Does he always pay with cash?
No, I have no idea. I mean, I pay with credit card, I never use cash card.
When you're with him, does he often pay with credit card or does he often pay with cash?
So, Francesca, I think you know that Fotis's mother was run over by a nanny in Jennifer's driveway, I believe. And Michelle is kind of, seems like a bit of a mama's girl, sorry, a daddy's girl. Like she's me, in the sense that her father is very supportive of her. He's spoken about her outside the court. We see him holding her hand. I think a lot of her confidence comes from her father's sort of unconditional love.
No, credit card. When we travel outside, cash.
When you travel outside
The
of
country.
the country, cash. But when he's home in the United States, Connecticut, he's
Well,
normally
in the
using a credit
beginning, I
card.
used to pay a lot with cash.
Okay, but recently around this time
That's
frame.
it. And
Okay.
I didn't see him pay, so I don't know that he paid with cash. You're the one telling me.
Well, he paid cash.
Exactly. I
So-
don't know.
The seats with Pavel's truck,
Mhm.
what do you know about those?
What seats?
Pavel's seats in his truck, the driver's seat, in Tacoma. What do you know about those seats?
What do you mean by what?
Do you know anything about the seats? Did Paul say anything? Do you know anything about the
No,
seats in the
but-
truck?
Someone told me that.
The question is,
No, I don't know anything about
did
this.
Fotis ever tell you anything about the seeds?
No, the only thing Poti said, Pavel is gonna sell his car.
Judge, is this a good time to take a
Yeah.
morning recess?
Ladies and gentlemen, we will take our morning recess and
So there you can see Mishi again, and she's once again dressed in kind of a beige librarian look. She got that sort of librarian look going again. What do you guys call it? A knitted jumper. But she's certainly looking quite plain and passive. Is that the real her, though? Now, this may sound a little simplistic, but I think one way, if you're sitting in a jury, I think one way to determine whether there's a strong case against somebody, I'm talking about if you're sitting there on day 1, 2, 3, more kind of in the beginning, and there's this whole thing of, did this person commit this crime? I think one way that is kind of, on the one hand it's obvious, but on the other hand it's subtle in the sense that it's got to compute in your mind, and that is, does it seem like there are two sides to this person? Does it seem like Jekyll and Hyde? And what I mean is, the person in court, is that the same person that you see elsewhere in the interrogation tapes, in verbatim quotes about bitches and burials, right? And if there's a mismatch there, then you've kind of got to think about that. And I must say, I felt that in a big way in the Caitlin Armstrong case. Caitlin in court never once looked around. Her family were like sitting right behind her. She never once turned around. She was very passive, very quiet, hardly spoke to her attorney, and seemed totally different to the Caitlin of reality. Someone who you hear talking to the police in a cubicle, I would like to leave. I would like a lawyer. I would like to leave. She's assertive. She's strong. She also said, you just embarrassed me in front of my whole neighborhood. She's kind of quite cocky. She's aware of her rights, all that kind of thing. So there's this big mismatch between who you see in court and who you perceive elsewhere. That's potentially a serious problem. You got a little bit of the same thing with Jodi Arias. She looks different in court. She seems quite sweet. She seems quite soft. It was only when she was convicted that sadism came out, where she said, actually, I did do this to Travis, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, that's not enough to convict someone, just to say there's a mismatch. But all I'm saying is that's the beginning of the road to that, where you say, well, there's actually two people here, just in the same way that there was two Chris Wattses, right? The reason they're two people, it's the same thing when someone has an affair. There's one version of that person, and then, and then there's the other, that person living a bit of a secret life. And you can apply the same thing with people in your orbit, people around you that also there's a bit of a mismatch between who they are with you and who they are somewhere else. Why is there such a big change like that? And so, a way of living authentically and a way of living in a way that's going to lead to happiness is being congruent, being the same person in different situations, being the same person in different company. So beware of someone who's not that.
Would counsel stipulate?
Yes, Judge.
Yes.
And we're picking the video back up at 4:05:53. We're going to rewind it 10 seconds, Judge.
Thank you.
He told you the day of the car wash.
That day of the car wash. He's gonna sell his car, and he asked me if he can use that Cherokee for a period of time. I said, yeah, I don't have a problem.
Okay, but he never mentioned the seats, something like that.
No, no. No.
You did or
When last did someone ask you if they could use your vehicle? I just want to use your vehicle for a couple of days. Oh, okay. Here it is. Anyone? No, I won't be writing a book on this case. And so that's quite a commitment. Think about it. If someone is not a family member, I mean, it's one thing if a family member says, my car's in the shop, or my car's got a flat tire, right? Even then, I think most people would say, well, get a rental, or why must I give you my car, kind of thing. There are a lot of other alternatives to me giving you my car. Get it fixed, whatever. But when would you give your car to kind of a stranger? Let's say a work colleague. When would you give your car to a work colleague? And would you say that Mishi and Pavel were bosom buddies? Did they go dirt bike riding on weekends? Maybe they did. But he's married. Pavel's married. Pavel's a carpenter who probably lives in a much more humble house than Mishi. And Pavel's not a water skier. So, I don't know whether they had too many kumbaya gatherings next to the pond, if he wasn't even interested in that. So why is she so comfortable giving him her vehicle?
for sure.
Yes, I mean, I know he wanted to sell the car for what this told me.
The question
I
is,
don't
no,
know.
listen, it's just, what he's saying to you is, this is the question.
And I'm answering, I don't know anything. The only ones that all the things about
See, even her lawyer is getting kind of impatient with her. This is the question, answer the question.
the cars was between Pavel and Fotis. They were the ones that knew which car to take each morning. I was always the leftover of whatever car was left over in the house.
So you got whatever's left, huh?
Yes.
Last choice. I don't know, I was raised a little different myself, but ladies' choice, ladies first.
I mean, obviously I prepared the Cherokee because it was the most
Yeah.
comfortable. And I mean,
The record, excuse me. I'm sorry, we're jumping all over, but go back to Kent. How often is Kent at the house?
lately he was going to the house a lot, and Fotis was going to his office. I don't know if they were seeing, I mean, I don't know, I believe
To issue the forward office or to Kent's
Kent
office?
to Fotis to Kent's office and Kent to Fotis.
Can you kind of define lately, like a time frame?
So, Susan, I'm not quite sure what you're getting at there. You seem to say I have the order wrong. I'm not quite sure what you mean. I think you're saying, so you a criminal when you have an affair. I think there are different people who have affairs. I think sometimes it really is innocent. And how can I put it? What I mean by that is you can have a situation where both parties don't even intend to have an affair. They just end up becoming really good friends. And then it kind of, let's say, naturally goes somewhere. And then almost like when they wake up, it's like, oh, wow, this is happening. And then that's when it crosses that honesty line. And then I think it's a question of whether you say, is this who I am? Am I a cheater? Am I an adulterer? Is this who I am? And some people will say, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this to you. I can't do this to me. This isn't who I am. And someone else will say, will basically be like, I want, at any cost, I want you. I need, when are you going to get divorced? I need your marriage to end, kind of thing. So I'm just saying you have a kind of innocence that takes you into dishonesty, and then you decide whether that's what you want or what you are. And then you have something else that's I think far more cold and kind of predatory. It's like and kind of narcissistic. This is what I want, and I'll do anything to get it. And I think it's that kind of thing that can lead to real criminal psychology, because it's already starting to put the other person in a position of being expendable and at your own expense. Does that make sense?
Like maybe 3 weeks.
So 3 weeks to kind of gear it up.
They were, that I hear him talking a lot with Kent, or he would tell me I'm talking to Kent, and maybe he wasn't true.
Is it normal for Kent to be in the house that early in the morning?
Um,
I wouldn't say that it's never innocent. You get people who get to the verge of an affair, and then they don't actually have the affair. They realize, wow, I suddenly have these feelings, they're not appropriate. Okay, whatever, right? There is a real innocence to ordinary emotion. You may be married and you may have a passing feeling or fancy to someone who walks by. The question is, do you act on it or not? So, emotions of themselves are innocent. Interestingly, in South Korea, I'm just trying to remember, I think in South Korea, adultery is a crime. Like, you can get thrown in jail for adultery. In Singapore, I'm not going to go into the details, but certain sexual activities that most of us take for granted, I think, are also regarded as criminal. So, there's also that. Anyway, let's have a look at some of your comments. Earth says, I think Photos coordinated the vehicles. I can't believe she didn't know why. So let's try and be intelligent here. if you look at this case in a global way, it's like a musical chairs with vehicles, right? And the primary sort of vehicle that is part of the ground zero of this crime is the red Toyota Tacoma, right? But essentially, it's a musical chairs with vehicles. And then the real question just becomes, if there's an accessory and on top of that a co-conspirator, then she would need to be involved in the vehicles in some way. Is she? So, you just put it in a little bit of a box and you say, this is a vehicle heavy case. There's a lot of vehicle activity in this case. And then you simply say, the vehicle is part and parcel of how the crime was executed. And then you say, here is someone suspected of being a co-conspirator. To what extent is she involved in these vehicles? And the answer is, she is constantly involved. She's got the keys to the red Toyota Tacoma. She's there when the car is cleaned at the washer. She's also there on the day of the murder, right by the passenger door, and admits that she's cleaning. What else? She gives her own vehicle to Pavel Gumeni, seemingly no questions asked. What else? She's doing trips to and from her home, her property, to another property with a murderer on the day of the murder. Later that same day, she goes to Hartford with a murderer in that vehicle. So that vehicle's, if you're going to say the number one vehicle is the red Toyota Tacoma, what's the number two vehicle? You'd say the Ford Raptor. Well, she's in that vehicle. Quite a strong argument, you agree? And then another aspect to this that I think is quite interesting is, who's going to notice that Fotis's bicycle is just gone? Who's gonna be aware that his bicycle isn't there anymore? Answer, Michelle. But Michelle can cover for him, so it doesn't really matter.
Myself.
Well, that office, a lot of people comes in and out. It was like, sometimes I would find subcontractors or Fotis was an early person. I don't know if I saw Kent at that time another day that early.
You overheard their conversations, does anything stand out? Fotis and Kent talking?
Fotis, each time he would talk, he would go to the office to talk. Even when he talked to Mark, Andreas, his friends, he would always go
That makes
to
a lot of
the,
sense.
huh?
Makes sense.
To the office.
It was always that way, Fotis?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Or he would chat a lot.
Chat? Oh, on his phone?
Text, yes, message.
Have you ever known, Michelle, have you ever known Fotis to watch any of his workers' cars before the time that they washed?
But
He
in
washed.
person, well, Barret, I've seen him since I moved there. Guillaume, there was another French guy called Guillaume, that he used to have that.
Tragic news, guys. Audrey Cunningham has been found. That little 11-year-old girl was found today in the Trinity River. So I guess where her bag was left was a decoy. I'll just quickly go to this.
Houston families dealing with the unthinkable. Loved ones disappearing without a trace. Fox 20. Part of the News Edge at 6 and 10.
So it just shows you, in one case, this little girl was found about 5 days later, whereas Jennifer Dulos, 5 years later, still hasn't been found. But look at where her body was disposed of, in water, in a river. It's a way to wash. Disposing of a body in water is a way also to wash evidence of the perpetrator. She was 11 years old, and the suspect, I don't know if he's actually been officially named as a suspect. I think he's currently just a person of interest. But he lived right behind her. It just seems kind of predictable in a way. Anyway, so I just thought I would let you guys know about that. Let's go back to this case. So pretty sad news, right?
But police would use a lot the Raptor. So they were exchanged.
Right, but Pavel, the Toyota is Pavel's truck.
The
The photos ever washed it's one of his workers' trucks in the
I
back.
never saw washing that one, but just washing other cars from his car.
Well, his car is,
Yes,
this
but
is
not
a
from,
question.
not from the
Yes, he'll wash the former cars.
Yes, but
Right.
not
Other
from
than
Pavel.
his cars.
Not from Pavel.
Now, Pavel's car, when we first talked to you, you described it to us as this. Pavel's car is old, destroyed, and very dirty inside.
Yes,
You didn't find it kind of strange that he wanted to wash it?
because he told me at some point that Pavel wanted to sell it, and when Audrey said like 3 times that he was gonna sell it, and that if it doesn't matter, if he can stay with the Cherokee.
Do you still believe that to be the case?
No, of course, now.
Well, I mean, I can't make assumptions, sorry. You don't believe that's a true story anymore told by POTUS?
Because it's a lot of,
Why would POTUS be washing Tacoma, do you think, if you have any idea?
obviously, all the evidences, because, and you showed me the picture of the blood in that door, it's because the body of Jennifer at some point was in there.
So that's what's called reasonable. What we believe as well.
And
But,
I find it pretty damn sick.
I know,
That's sick. That's utterly disgusting.
I know.
So this is why you have detail, or somewhere deep in your heart, you still feel what you're doing for them.
No, he wasn't probably, yes, cleaning the car. Well, he was cleaning the car.
But to attempt to do that, that's pretty ugly. No,
but with like paper towel, I can just.
That's not what he's talking.
what I'm talking about is that somewhere deep within you still feel for this guy, or there's a connection where you're trying to.
I don't.
There is detail. I mean, this is the last time.
So that's quite interesting, is when the officer kind of leans forward and says, you know, if you still have feelings in your heart for this guy, and that's when she kind of breaks down. She's kind of trying not to cry. And what do you think the answer is to that? Did she have strong feelings for him? The other thing that's worth mentioning is I believe this was quite traumatic for her and for Fotis. The whole divorce and the kids and everything, all very traumatic. And yet she doesn't really shed one tear about the trauma, as if to say, wow, this has all been so hard. This has all been so much. It's just so overwhelming. And yet, instead, you kind of get the sense that her energy is going more into defending herself. And so it's almost like if she was participating in this crime, then she's already reached the finish line. And now she's just got to sort out the little loose ends at the end, and then she gets a fairy tale. And here the guy says to her, you know, if he's still in your heart, and she actually shows some emotion that you don't really see. She shows a softness. She shows a weakness, I guess. She actually cries, seems to be quite tearful at this thought of what feelings do you still have for this guy? Right? Let's just go back a couple of seconds.
Was cleaning the car.
But to attempt to do that, that's pretty ugly. No,
But with like paper towel, I can just.
That's not what he's talking.
what I'm talking about is that somewhere deep within you still feel for this guy, or there's a connection where you're trying to.
I don't.
There is detail. I mean, this is the last opportunity.
No, I know. He was cleaning the car.
You're not gonna meet with us again.
I know, but he was cleaning the car.
So you decide where those sheets were clean. Inside.
No, I didn't see him inside, but
Alright, so the door was open.
The door was open, he kind of walked, he asked for paper towels, so yes, he was.
Did you notice anything in the back, the bed of the car, the truck? Were there any bags, other than garbage bags, were there any ski bag or anything around? Was there anything in the garage that you noticed?
No, in the garage, he was empty, that garage is empty, I saw the bicycle,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it, and I think there were bags that he has of, I don't know what,
Okay.
but they were like paper bags or something.
Okay, the grocery bags or bigger?
Like what?
Grocery bags?
No, bigger.
Bigger.
Yeah, the big from construction.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe it's cement, I don't know what it is,
Right.
the big fish, I don't know if they're still there.
And that bike was an old black colored,
Or brownish or
dark colored.
dark color.
Did it have a, you know, the,
Pavel fixed it, he must know exactly what brand. Pavel was the one who fixed that bike.
Michelle, when you brought up the bike earlier, when you said Pavel had mentioned it, you also said 61 Sturbridge at the same time, which is an address in
Wait, what?
New Canaan.
Sorry?
61 Sturbridge Hills. When you told us about Pavel talking about the bike, at the same time you said 61 Sturbridge.
That they started talking about 61 Sturbridge.
Okay, it wasn't about the bike, you just kind of
No,
confused the two
it
things?
was like conversations that I recall of them having,
Okay.
but not that the bike.
It didn't have to do with Sturbridge and the bike, it was
No,
just.
it's that at some point, what I remember, Pavel telling Fotis like how was his day in 61 Street in New Canaan.
Right, yeah. This is kind of distinct lettering. This is part of that bike. Does that lettering look at all familiar? Don't go by the color of the bike, just look at the lettering itself. It's kind of how it's, but it says Special Tour de France. And then there's.
It was a European bike because he
Yeah.
brought it from Europe because he said that he had it since he's 18. So I guess it's a bike from a European bike.
Does that name,
Just gonna pause it at 4:14:10. Detective Kimball, can you just indicate to the jury what you're showing the defendant at this point?
I am showing a photograph off the internet of a Mercier bicycle that has the font, the words Special Tour de France.
And why were you showing her that particular brand of bicycle?
Because in the Albany Avenue garbage, we discovered 2 bags that were taped together, and on the adhesion side of the tape was that phrase, Special Tour de France.
It could. I don't know that brand.
but I didn't know it either. The Tour de France thing you've never seen before?
No, of course I see the Tour de France.
Well, no, this specific logo.
No, we don't.
Tour de
But,
France. Never saw
but
that
it was
before.
a line senior that it was a European bike. He told me that he had it since he was.
So I don't know about you, but don't you feel that the prosecution could have done a little bit more to provide guidance on this interview? You know, like 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes go by without saying anything. And there's quite a few things you can say. If for no other reason they can emphasize certain things that are asked. In other words, just make it explicit that that is what was said, just to keep the jury engaged and so on. Do you think the prosecution could have done a better job? Instead of playing this interview for as long as they do. I mean, this session is almost 3 hours long, and it's just the morning session. Why not make it a little bit more interactive? I mean, how many people can sit through a 3-hour movie? And this is certainly not the most entertaining 3-hour movie. The sound isn't so great. The video quality isn't very good either. Surely the prosecution could have done a bit more work to provide captions. Don't you agree? It's a little bit slapdash.
18. Probably he brought it with him.
Thanks,
He
Karina.
got it here. No, is this a brand that you find here?
I actually never heard of that. Mercier news to me.
Welcome back, Stephanie.
But the one that's I know exactly is by. But I well, but I don't think they mentioned the bicycle.
Oh, that one I love to say. No.
Look, you're trying to do this.
Yes, I mean, you guys can keep asking, I can stay all night, because I really want to solve this, and I don't know what to do, like, I'll tell you whatever, but tell me what you want to know, and I'll go over it, and I'll think with you guys. I mean, what else, I know.
The ultimate is we want to find out where she is, what happened.
Well, for all that you guys have, obviously, that police did something to her. If she was cleaning the car, if he was cleaning the car, it was Jennifer's blood.
Doesn't that sound a bit like a Freudian slip? She says, if she was cleaning the car, I mean, if he was cleaning the car. Let's just go back to that.
Think with you guys. I mean, what else? I know.
The ultimate is we want to
I
find
know
out
that
where she is, what happened.
Well, for all that you guys have, obviously, that Fotis did something to her. If she was cleaning the car, if
Did you get that? So she starts off saying, basically, this is the elephant in the room, that Fotis did something to her. Now, that's already pretty dissociated language. The proper way to say that is Fotis murdered Jennifer. My boyfriend, who I'm having a cheating, adulterous relationship with, murdered his ex-wife. And the very next thing she says after that is she cleaned the car. Now, are you telling me that Jennifer cleaned the car? Wasn't that a bit of a Freudian slip?
he was cleaning the car, it was Jennifer's blood. So
The ultimate is we want to find out where she is, what happened.
Paul, for all that you guys have, obviously, that Fotis did something to her. If she was cleaning the car, if he was cleaning the car, it was Jennifer's blood. So he knows where Jennifer is.
Yeah, I have a question.
But I don't know.
Don't ask about that. You have to cooperate. He's not sitting here. He had,
I know, but
well, that's actually a question. Did he ever tell you he was cooperating with the police with the disappearance of his wife?
He told me. What I heard in the phone when they said, I want you to come tomorrow. It was on Friday night talking to.
That's good to hear, Stephanie. Matt Prince says it's almost like she believes she's innocent. Yeah. You know, we're dealing with a case where in Connecticut, if you conspire to kill someone, it's regarded as the same as murder. It's damn serious.
The police, I guess, in Kenya. He said, I will go down, no problem. I'll answer all the questions. I stayed with that in my mind. When he went to the police, Jacob, the first person I heard from was Jacob, that he was with Fotis. And they said, listen, they took Fotis' phone. We just spent, I don't know how many hours in the police.
Not long at all, believe me.
Okay, he told me he went and he spent time in the police, that they took his phone. Everything is gonna be okay. Please, if your phone rings, don't answer. If the police calls, you're gonna leave a voicemail, which they did. They did leave voicemail, I think 2 times. I don't know who called. And then obviously I did ask him at some point when he came back, do you know anything? What happened? Everything is gonna be okay. And she
So actually, you realize that's not an answer. You're asking him, do you know anything about the disappearance of your wife? And that should be a yes or no answer. And his response is, everything will be fine. Don't worry.
Because
That's not an answer.
well, yes, of course, it's not an answer.
And you never asked him, where were you that day? Because I didn't see you at home, your phone was at home. I mean, that ever came up in conversation?
It didn't, because that house is so big. I've seen, we don't see each other for the day. It's not like I see him every 5 minutes. I mean,
You didn't know where he was that
I
morning.
didn't know. I
And
did
that's
ask
when his
him.
wife disappeared.
No, but because he was in the afternoon, then we went to the Hartford. I mean,
Yeah, but that's the afternoon, right?
in the afternoon. In my mind, I was with him pretty much all day.
And then, in the dinner party,
What's the report?
the 23rd, everyone's over. Photos doesn't come till like 8:30, right? The people are there.
No, he was there.
He was there from the start.
He was there. He just went out for a second to buy a meat, and he came back.
Do you know what car he drove by chance? Like went out to go to yeah.
And he did come with a piece of meat.
Yeah.
But
No,
then
he did go to Stop
he,
Shop, but
like,
no, he
he
was
had a piece of meat in somewhere.
he's doing a lot of language, just a little bit.
Okay.
So is his attorney.
So we've just jumped a little bit ahead to basically the conclusion that the prosecution draws. We had about 2.5 hours into this live. It's about 11:30 at night where I am. I don't want to go too close to midnight. Otherwise, I need to kind of shut down and sleep. So I need to kind of start wrapping up. So we'll probably be on for another 5, 10, 15 minutes. So let's listen to the prosecution basically wrapping up their case. Is there anyone who disagrees with Liesel? Do you agree that Nicole Kessinger cooperated? Now think about what the result was of that. They recovered the bodies where the bodies could have been very hard to find. I mean, I don't know if they would ever have looked in the tanks if they weren't told to look there. And also they got a successful prosecution like that of Chris Watts. As soon as Chris Watts found out that Nicole had basically thrown in the towel, basically just told them everything, Chris Watts threw in the towel. Stephanie says, I disagree. In what way? Okay, but Liesel says, okay, I think you're reading that in a different way, but Liesel is saying, Liesel, what are you saying? Are you saying, I don't think you're saying that Nicole conspired, right? Yeah, I think Liesel meant Michelle. But anyway, I do agree with that. I do agree with that. So that's also kind of a matter of debate. There's some places and certainly even some states, as far as I know, where it is criminal to have an affair. Isn't South Carolina one of them? Is having an affair a crime in the US? 3 US states criminalize it as a felony: Oklahoma, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Did you guys know that? There are 3 states in America where adultery is a crime, and 14 states that regard it as a misdemeanor, and there you can see them highlighted in gray, I think. See, I was right. South Carolina is one of the states. New York is one of the states. Utah. So, you know, it is actually regarded as a crime in parts of America. So when you say, can this crime lead to other crimes? Certainly. It's a crime in 3 states and a misdemeanor in about a dozen states.
Detective Kimball, the defendant indicated during the interview that there was one room in particular in the house that had the best service. Do you recall which room that was?
Was
Right.
the office, the four-group office.
And where did the defendant answer the phone call on Mr. Doulis's phone that particular morning?
In the four-group office.
And who did she indicate that she, strike that, who did she indicate was the name that came up on the caller ID?
Andreas.
Thanks for that, Elizabeth. Must be
This
getting,
is State's Exhibit 75, Your Honor, which has been admitted as a full exhibit.
so Liesel says, I meant Michelle, and that's clarified. That is how I understood you.
Detective Kimball, could you just indicate to the jury what we're looking at here?
This is a timeline that the defendant indicated was completed by Fotis Doulos for Friday, May 24th, 2019.
And I want to direct your attention now to this line here, beginning with 8:27. Andres called and spoke briefly. And this was Mr. Doulos's timeline?
Yes.
Did the defendant indicate whether or not she had ever read Mr. Doulos's timeline during the third interview?
She indicated she had not.
So again, that is Fotis's alibi script. And guess what's right there is that Andres called, and what he's basically trying to assert there is that I spoke to him briefly. But of course, that little part should be on Michelle's timeline. Do you think it is?
This is State 74, which is multiple documents. And just for the record, I'm displaying the document that begins with a time entry of 6:40. What are we looking at here, Detective?
This is a photocopy of a timeline that the defendant indicated she had prepared for Friday, May 24th, 2019.
And I want to direct your attention to between 8:12 and 8:30. Is there any indication on this timeline that the defendant answered
Your
Mr.
Honor,
Doulis's phone?
I'm going to object to asking things that are not in a document. That's inappropriate. You can ask what the document is, but you don't
Well,
take the document and say what's
all you
not.
have to do, Counsel, is state the ground.
Yeah.
In the video, the defendant indicated that she saw a name appear on the screen. She was asked by Kent Mawhinney whether she was going to answer the call. She picked up the phone and heard static. So the state's question goes to whether there is an inconsistent statement. Overruled.
Detective Kimball, is there any indication in the defendant's timeline that she answered Mr. Doulis's phone that morning?
Between 8:12 and 8:30, there's no indication that she answered Mr. Doulis's phone when Andreas called.
Oh. Is there any indication in this timeline that the defendant lit a fire at 4 Jefferson Crossing on May 24th, 2019?
There is
Same-
not.
Same objection, Your Honor.
So look at the last entry here. I'm not sure if there's another page. 5:10, drove to pick up rugs and drove back too late to pick up something, closes at 5:30. Did she pick up rugs anywhere? Went to pond to ski where there's no one to pull her. What did she say about cleaning? I thought she did. Oh, there we go. Went with cleaning supply to 80 Mountain Spring Road, back and forth. That part's certainly true. And she may not think that that's a big deal, but I do. We do. That part's also true. But of course, they've got to have that in there because Pavel is an independent witness. That part's probably also true. Took Nicole to school. That part's probably also true. But there's something missing over there.
Overruled.
Sorry, you can answer.
There is not.
That is interesting if it's true. But is it true?
Returning 74 and 75 to clerk. If I can just have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Nothing further, Judge.
Cross-examination.
Okay, so we're not going to listen to the cross-examination. If we go to the afternoon session, just want to see where we are.
138.
So, Detective, you had an opportunity to review Detective Clabby's report, and you were asked about a wrong entry and a correct entry, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right, I'm just going to ask if you could just step down and, based on what you read in the report, can you indicate to the jury what the correct entry was?
Correct entry appears to be on this line. This is Michelle Traconis' phone number. The vehicle description is blank. The time is 9:14. Times 2 is detailing times 2. And this is the price which needs to be paid. In other words, it's not paid at the time of inception.
I don't know whether the cameraman is sleeping or the sensitive information he doesn't want to show. Maybe the latter. MK says, I couldn't do a timeline for this morning. I think I could. How about you guys? If someone asked you to do a timeline for today, could you? I think if you think about it, you could be, and you had your phone, you could be quite accurate, quite detailed.
want to just direct your attention to earlier on in the interview. I don't have the exact timestamp. And you were asked some questions on cross-examination about the smoke from the chimney. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
Now, you spoke with the defendant about her movements back and forth between 80 Mountain and Fort Jefferson Crossing during the third interview, correct?
Correct.
And at one point, you indicated to her that you were trying to figure out basically what she was doing to try to account for her time, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And at that point in the interview, did the defendant ever say to you that she had lit a fire at that point?
No.
She mentioned maybe being on her computer, I think, correct?
Yes.
If I could just have a moment, Judge?
Yes.
Nothing further, Judge. Ruling at this point that we need to really debate, at least that's the state's view. I did just want to be heard on one additional matter, Judge. Kent Mawhinney, of course, is a co-conspirator in this matter. He's been arrested. The charges remain pending. He undoubtedly has a Fifth Amendment privilege and therefore is unavailable to both parties. And given that we're going to be resting tomorrow, I just want to indicate that for the record, because obviously there shouldn't be any sort of missing witness arguments in closing argument under Secondino, I think is the name of the case, in light of that fact, because he's unavailable.
Of course, unavailable does not mean he's missing. Unavailable means he's going to invoke his privilege. The court just wants to also go over how it intends to proceed.
So what do you think about that? We've just heard that Kent Mawhinney is unavailable to both sides, apparently invoking his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, to not incriminate himself. Doesn't that suggest, what does that suggest? Put it that way. So once again, to me, in a case that's about a possible co-conspirator, when there's another possible co-conspirator, right, who's been charged, who's going to also stand trial, and this trial is really important to potentially set a precedent for that trial. How does that reflect on Mishi? So in other words, Michelle Troconis is accused of being a co-conspirator, and then there's another person also charged, and guess what? They're in the same room on the day of the murder. They're in the same, they have a direct interaction with one another on the day of the murder. Not a very good look, is it? And if Kent Mawhinney was like, this is all one big mistake, then surely you testify. Instead, he's not going to testify. I mean, if you were accused of something and it wasn't true, would you want to stay silent? And I can tell you guys now, I don't know whether my insurance thing is going to go to court, but if what the next step isn't satisfactory, I would like to be in a courtroom and tell my story, because I don't think that what has happened is right. And so I think if you innocent, you want to testify. If you're guilty, maybe you want to testify also. If you feel that you can maybe influence the narrative one way or the other. But the other side of it is often guilty people don't testify. So how many court cases did certain people not testify? Chris Watts, Scott Peterson, O.J. Simpson, Casey Anthony, Caitlin Armstrong. One of the glaring exceptions, Jodi Arias, 18 days on the stand, like a record. Anyone else, other cases where they didn't testify? Alec Murdaugh, he did testify, disaster. But there he had the confidence that he could maybe change people's minds. And you can imagine why he had that, because he was a lawyer. But so many cases where people didn't testify. And so in this case, will Michelle Troconis testify? Or Kent Mawhinney isn't testifying to anybody. So I guess we'll see. The timeline of the defense, doesn't that suggest she isn't going to testify?
For the schedule. So
Yeah.
tomorrow morning at 9:30, we'll take up the motion to quash, or in the alternative, issue a protective order. Then the court expects the short state's witness.
I suspect if Kent Mawhinney testified, then probably this trial would have been a half or a third as long. If he testified and if it was about what he knew and he was willing to say what he knew, in my opinion, maybe he doesn't know anything and it wouldn't have, maybe he would have said, I don't know anything, and maybe it would have been a denial. I don't know. But yeah. What does Liesl say? Agree with you on the insurance case. Yeah. Anyway, thanks a lot for your vote of confidence there. Let's listen to the last couple of points, and then I'm gonna say goodbye and go off to dreamland.
Cross-examination. And what the court understands is that that is the prosecution's last witness before arresting. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Then the court would expect the defense, if it intends to call any witnesses, to call witnesses. After the defense rests, the court understood previously that the defense is probably going to take 3 days. That's what the court understood. Is that accurate, Attorney Schoenhorn?
Fairly accurate. I'll also note the court's leaving out. I'll file it now, even though it's premature. I'm going to file a motion for judgment of acquittal, just to pro forma motion. I thought the state was resting today, so I'm filing it because it's got today's date on it. But obviously, I won't argue it until after the state rests. But that will take maybe 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. I have case law and whatnot to cite to Your Honor, and there's a lot of charges, so I at least want to, it's not just a pro forma argument, I would believe, in this case.
Thank you. So after the state rests, of course, motion for judgment of acquittal has to be heard. Then the defense puts on its witnesses. I don't know how many witnesses the defense will get to tomorrow. But let's jump ahead to after the defense rests. The court is going to have to collapse certain things because what has happened in this case is uncommon. After the defense rests, we're going to take a break in order to allow both counsel to prepare their presentation for the contempt hearing. Now, the court does not know if all of that can be done the same day. But that's going to be the order right now. The court did not want to proceed with a contempt hearing interrupting the defense case. It's only after the defense rests. The court will indicate today that the contempt hearing, if a contempt finding is made, is not going to impose a sanction at that time. Because that is a sanction that would be imposed, if there was one to be imposed, before closing arguments, and the court does not want to essentially disrupt the defendant's Sixth Amendment right to a defense. And in this court's view, having practiced criminal defense for a long time, would find it disruptive if the court proceeded with a contempt hearing, made a finding, and then asked counsel to prepare closing argument. Too disruptive. That's how the court intends to proceed. And then, of course, we'd have to proceed with a charge conference. So there are many, as the cliche goes, moving parts here.
Yeah, we are aware of the contempt situation. How can I put this? How do you scale together, or how do you juxtapose conspiracy to commit murder and a contempt thing? I'm a little bit confused, because I would imagine that a contempt thing is a civil aspect. It's a civil thing. Why is it being dealt with in a criminal court? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is potentially a criminal thing. Maybe what is dealt with in court it deals with what actually happened in that court. Maybe it's that. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's no sanction, kind of a warning, or, because you've got to prove intent. Even if there was intent, what would the sanction be? Maybe a fine, maybe $500 fine. I don't know. I don't know what Liesel says. What kind of sanction do you think is likely here? Liesel is a lawyer, so we're in good company. We can get some expertise here in terms of that. Liesel says she's likely to be found in contempt. So that's exactly what I said. As far as I'm concerned, it's not a criminal offense, it's a civil offense. And probably it'll be a fine, nothing more than that. So I'm kind of surprised that it's been getting so much attention. It's like, aren't we dealing with a conspiracy to commit murder thing? But the media and a lot of social media is going crazy about she committed contempt of court, and I think it's because it's so explicit that people find it so interesting and worth talking about. But to me, on the scale of what we're dealing with here, it's almost not really worth mentioning. just how I see it.
The court wants to try to make sure that the jury is not surprised and informed that, well, we're going to be here a lot longer than March 1st. So that's the reason the court has to proceed this way. If there is a finding of contempt, if there is a finding of contempt, sanctions will be imposed when a verdict is returned, whether it's guilty or not guilty on all of the counts. Tomorrow, 9:30, we'll take up the motion to quash.
Is the attorney that filed the motion going to be here? I mean,
The court does not know.
have they been notified? Because I
Court
would
does
say
not.
that,
The court does not know. This was just handed to the court right before the court came into the session.
there's one other thing I did want to at least bring to your honor's attention.
So I'm not sure if I'm understanding this correctly, but as far as I know, they're going to call Kent Mawhinney, and he's either going to appear and assert his Fifth Amendment right, or he's not going to appear. And maybe someone on his behalf will communicate that to the court. But basically, we're at the point where the prosecution are ready to rest. But I think it's a formality that they are calling him as a key witness. And of course, it's not the prosecution's fault if he doesn't want to testify. But I think it's also important that they call him, and it is shown this reluctance to testify rather than just close. It needs to be part of the record. So that's why I think they're doing it that way. I also wonder whether the decision not to testify happened today, whether he's been considering his position vis-a-vis the evidence in this case. I don't know. Nancy says state rests tomorrow, and the defense starts with their witnesses. Judge was a defense attorney several years ago. Yeah, the judge certainly does make some of this trial more bearable. If the judge was a bore, this case should be very hard to cover. MK says that, okay. Free Spirit says Michelle picks up on the fact that they know something about the fire. She did say that she was burning wood. Could they have burnt a broom or a mop? Some of the materials, that they may have used. Okay, so anyway, I've broken my own little deal with myself. I wanted to be done by midnight. It's 6 minutes past midnight. I'm starting to feel quite sleepy. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. And thank you so much. A special thank you for some amazing super chats. Kind of when I really needed it, I actually felt quite, I don't know, in need of a bit of a jab tonight. This has been a long case. I've covered 23 of 24 days. I think I missed one day somewhere in there. So it's been quite a commitment. Thanks, Stephanie, for that. I must tell you guys, I'm going on a little R&R trip. I just need to sharpen the saw a little bit. That'll be in early March. So if the trial lasts much longer than March, March the 1st is a Friday. I probably won't be able to cover it, not because I don't want to, but because I simply can't. I'll be far from home, and I'm not sure if there'll be internet. I'm not saying I won't cover any of it from March, but it might be a little intermittent. So if I'm in a hotel and I've got some time, I'll try. I am traveling with a friend of mine, a male friend, and although he's going to be doing some work, I can't obviously expect him to drop everything so I can do a 2-3 hour live. We're traveling together, so that may impact my coverage. The other side of it is the defense case. I'm not terribly enthusiastic about. I'd be very interested, and I'll try to cover the closing arguments. So even if I cover that in a delayed fashion, I will cover it. But I'm just giving you guys a heads up. I can obviously cover the case for the next week or so. Beyond that, it's going to be a little bit difficult. March is just over a week away, so it's some time. And I'm doing it just because I need to freshen myself up. I need a little bit of a complete break, just so that my mind is like a sponge again. I'm starting to feel a little stale, so that's really the point of it. I've worked pretty flat out since I came back from America, especially December and January. So that's kind of the plan. Mel Stiller says a big hug to the ladies in blue. Okay. Thanks, Earth. Elizabeth says, thanks, Nick. Hope you get a good night's sleep. So I'll obviously be here tomorrow and the day after and the day after. I'm just saying from March, I can't guarantee. I don't know. I don't even know myself exactly where I'm going to be. But if I can, I will try and cover what I can cover. So I'm just saying there might be a little bit of intermittence in March. That's all. Anyway, our hearts go out to Audrey's family. That's certainly sad news. I'd never really thought that there was much hope there, but you never know. I mean, remember what happened with Charlotte Cena. So you can sometimes have a happy ending, but yeah, that does basically sum it up. Anyway, mods, thanks a lot for being here. I appreciate it. Stephanie, Chelsea, Terry, Sharon, are you still here? All the new subscribers, welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks also to Liesel for sharing your Liesel with her legal expertise. And then yeah, again, thanks so much for the super chats. Really appreciate that. Thanks, Maria. Sherry, hi and bye. Diane says sweet dreams. Thanks a lot, Liesel. Last couple of chats. Charles says you deserve a respite. Hope you enjoy your time off. So probably I'll share a little bit of my adventures on the Team Peachtree channel. I'm not going to be visiting crime scenes. It's going to be more about nature and landscapes and that sort of thing. When I'm on the road, I'll be telling you where I am. That should be quite interesting and quite exciting. But it'll be more than likely on the Team Peachtree channel that you can follow my journey if you do want to. I'd like to tell you more, but I will tell you more when it's happening. Okay. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to trottle off to bed. It's midnight. Hopefully the Red Bull's sort of wearing off by now. Join me again around about this time tomorrow for trial day 25. If you're watching this on replay, please suggest a title for this episode. I'll also do the same. We see you can come up with the best title. Stephanie's put up a link to the Team Peachtree channel if you haven't subscribed. Subscribe if you haven't. Obviously, I'll be doing Van Gogh letters 75. So tomorrow, trial day 25, Van Gogh letters 75 on the weekend. So look out for that. Final thing I want to just mention is if you've missed a lot of my John Benet Ramsey coverage, you don't want to miss the next episode I'm going to put up, which is where I talk about the likely room where the incident with John Benet Ramsey happened. It may surprise you. It may even shock you. If you think you thought you knew the case, this might be something you never considered. So that should be coming out also in the next couple of days. Karina, it's late where you are. Karina's in Austria. I'm going to let you go to bed as well, go to sleep. Maria says, Nick, I know you reviewed John Benet, but after seeing the latest videos, would you be able to do it again? I'm not sure what you mean by review it. I'm certainly not going to do a review of the whole case. Maria, if you're interested, I've got a playlist of many videos. Let me just find it quickly for you. And I just suggest that you go through the playlist. The John Benet Ramsey case, you can't talk about in one go and say that's it. It's too complicated a case to reduce in that way. So there are a couple of playlists. There's the John Benet Ramsey, the Khan's Order. There is the John Benet Ramsey timeline countdown. There's the John Benet Ramsey 2 years ago today. And I think, isn't there another one? And then there's just John Benet Ramsey. So the John Benet Ramsey's got 42 videos. That's this one. Yes, there is a playlist of the McCanns. There's a playlist of the McCanns. There's a playlist of debunking the Netflix series, which I think is pretty good. There's another 51 video playlist on John Benet. And like I say, you've really got to, you can't just listen to 1 hour or 2 hours for the full story. It's much more than that. What else have I got here? And then there's this 21 episode playlist. And I think I've covered all of them. What's this one?
When you
There's also this 11. This was also a very good playlist. 11 episodes. It was
when you return to Boulder, you will
23 years
sit down
ago
with the
today.
police.
This is quite well done.
Absolutely.
This
We want
was
them
the
to know
covering
everything
the
possible
video, covering the.
Everything.
Timmy's
to help
licking my
them.
Whatever
leg, so it's
they
kind of
want,
I'm losing
whatever
concentration.
anyone wants, we will cooperate.
Timmy, come, boy. Timmy, come, boy. Timmy wants to go to sleep now. That's why you want to jump up. Come.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. Those of you who know me through the Chris Watts case probably don't know that I've written more than one trilogy, in fact more than a trilogy of trilogies of books.
Okay. Timmy, you must wake up and say goodbye to people. Bye-bye. Shame. He definitely is in need of a proper bath and a proper groom. His owner's been a bit neglectful, but I'll do that quite soon. Okay, anyway, Lars, thank you. Thanks very much, guys. I will see you guys all tomorrow. When you do, sleep well, sweet dreams. And I'll see you guys next time.